Yeah, let's just get going. There was a great bit where we made a great Claude the Cat reference.
Yep.
Oh, well, who knows?
Yes, my cat I can explain it for those of you who have seen this movie, which I'm sure it's not a lot. But my cat made a noise on screen. I was like, "Is that my cat?" And Ben yelled, "It's Claude," which is the name of the cat. And if I followed it, I would have died.
Yes, everyone who follows the sound of the cat in this movie immediately is brutally murdered. So let that be a lesson to you cat owners out there. Ignore your cats.
Ignore the cats.
So, as you know, I don't know how to start the podcast yet, so it'll either be that or something along the lines of Welcome to Late to the Movies. My name is Ben Holt, and this is a podcast where my friends and I get to fill in our movie blind spots. Each week, we'll pick a movie that either I or a guest hadn't seen before and really should have by now. This week, the theme is going to be fairly obvious, but hey, let's do it anyway. We're going to do Christmas movies. We skipped it last December. We just did Lord of the Rings, but we're going to do actual Christmas movies. Nothing but classics, heartwarming, gather the family. We're starting off with Black Christmas, 1974's cult classic. Your guests, my guests, left to right across your podcast alley. We got, actually, Craig is up. I go clockwise from me. It's Craig.
Craig.
Craig the Robot Bear, he's on the ones and twos. Sam's here.
Hey.
Bree's here.
Hello.
So usually this is where I would explain what the month's theme is, but yeah, it's Christmas movies. They're not all going to be like this, but I felt like this would be a good foil to the next episode, which will be It's a Wonderful Life, which has maybe a different view of the value of life. Who knows? Anyway, I'm really excited to talk about this movie. But before we do that, do you guys watch anything good recently?
I finally watched Alien.
Finally, interesting. You hadn't seen it before?
But I hadn't seen it, and I'm trying to go back and watch all of the classic horror movies that are either incredibly cheesy or just make lists of best horror movies. And this one was up there, and I finally watched it, and it was phenomenal. 5 out of 5.
That movie kicks ass. I also saw a Ridley Scott movie this week. But we should keep talking about Alien before I talk about Napoleon for like 5 seconds. Yeah, I love Alien. I know last time you were on, last month, you were doing series. You did Scream, you did Child's Play / Chucky. Are you going to do all the Aliens?
Yes, eventually. It's Aliens is going to be the next one I watch at some point. After I slow down from replaying Twilight Princess, but sprinkled in between gameplay, I will get to Aliens because I believe all of them are available for streaming. Though it's weird because some are on Max and then some are on Hulu, I think, or Paramount. But it's not completely obvious which ones are where. It's not the first 3 are somewhere and then the other, and then Aliens vs. Predators are somewhere else. I think Alien is on one, Aliens 2 is on another, and then 3 is on the same one that the first one is on. It's not obvious.
Yeah. The first 2 at least are bona fide 5-star movies, and then it gets pretty divisive on every other one from there on. But
right.
I like them.
Yeah, I'm still excited to watch all of them.
Yeah. I think just this week I saw the news on the new Alien movie that Fede Alvarez is working on. He made the Don't Breathe movies and a couple other things that maybe he could do. He could do tension at least, so maybe he's going to make it more like the first movie. But I just want Ridley Scott to be able to finish his Michael Fassbender is a weird robot trilogy. And he's made 2 of them, and they're phenomenal. Prometheus and Alien Covenant. The best 2.5-star movies ever made, both of them, I think.
Can't wait.
Yeah, I love those movies. People hate them, but the smart people know what's up, and they know that the David saga has to finish. That's his character's name. He makes out with himself in Alien Covenant. It's a perfect movie. So you just got 7 films, I think, to go to get there.
Yeah.
Cool. Sam, you seen anything recently?
Not really, to be honest. I don't think this will make the final edit, but we've been crushing dropout content like crazy, which we haven't really watched before like the last month or so. So that was fun.
Worth a subscription? Because Kay and I were literally just talking about that too.
Absolutely.
I would at the very least get the sub, just knock out some shows you like, and then if it doesn't hang, because that's kind of what we were at. Like we're subbed and we're watching as much as we can. Like now, kind of in the.
It's only $5 a month. Like I find it to be very worth it. Like even if we stay subbed and catch up, like they're still releasing a bunch of content. So
right, yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Dropout's is very worth it. They have multiple concurrent series. Yeah,
we started at the beginning of Make Some Noise, which I think they're only in like season 2 or 3 of, but it's essentially, for lack of a better term, they're like Whose Line equivalent, where it's literally just giving people prompts for their improv, and they start all doing one, then they do duos, and then they do ones all together, and then they just arbitrarily award a winner, just like Drew Carey did at the end of. But that's been really good so far. They got really good people on that. And Breaking News is also a big highlight. It's good. So that's my pitch for probably not Craig.
Yeah, you can ignore that one, Craig. No, I think that's good. That's video content. It works.
Yep.
If I'm up, then
yes.
Okay, cool.
I have also seen some Ridley Scott stuff. Ben, have you seen some Ridley Scott stuff? I should have said something like Napoleon. Like I've also been watching a bunch of documentaries about world leaders. Ben, have you seen any documentaries about world leaders?
No.
Only fictional movies.
What I have seen is a romantic comedy about two weirdos in the late 1700s, early 1800s in France.
Amazing.
Intercut with maybe the best epic large-scale battle photography in the last 10 years in cinema.
Shit.
Completely split down the middle. It's either like amazing jaw-dropping battle scenes or Vanessa Kirby and Joaquin Phoenix doing like Joaquin Phoenix he's doing the same performance as he does in Beau is Afraid, like just straight up. And he's got a lot of hang-ups, and this lady's got his head done in because of sex. Yeah, it's.
How long was the movie?
Sorry?
How long was the movie?
It's about 2.5 and change.
Oh man.
Probably to the film's detriment that I knew he had said this before I watched it. He didn't say this, but like the vibe was, this is basically a sizzle reel. It's just a 2 hour and 40 minute long sizzle reel. And when you're watching it, you're like, yeah, it feels abridged. Like it feels like it's either too long or too short, but it's great. I think Joaquin Phoenix has given my two favorite comedic performances this year, one in a horror movie and one in a biopic. So you mentioned Alien 3, David Fincher. That's David Fincher's, first big budget movie. His most recent movie for the Netflix Corporation, The Killer, that's out. That's been out for a while, but I just got to it this week. That movie rocks. I like Michael Fassbender a lot. This is the first movie he's made in like 5 years.
Is he a robot in this one too?
He's not a robot in this one, but he is robotic, I guess. He doesn't get a name. He's just like very blank slate. It's it doesn't explain anything. It doesn't give him a backstory. You just kind of understand what's happening with this guy as it's going. And it's organized basically into 5 sections with like different characters going on in each one. It's definitely one of my favorite movies of the year. It's then I also saw The Holdovers. It's really good. Paul Giamatti's awesome in it.
Is that the Sideways sequel? Not sequel, but you know what I mean? Like the second movie from the Sideways guys.
Yeah, so it's the first movie Alexander Payne, who's a writer and a director. He directed this movie. I don't know if he wrote this one. He's won, I think, 2 Oscars for writing, but I don't think he wrote this one. And if he did, I'm sorry to Alexander Payne. He's a big fan. Yeah, it's his first movie with Paul Giamatti since Sideways. Giamatti's awesome in it. He basically looks like the human embodiment of the Lorax. and carries himself that way and is like nears Mr. Bean levels of physical comedy in it. And of course, it's like a kind of heartstring pulling, dramedy, but it's also funny. It's good we're talking about it last because it's set in 1970 over Christmas break at a boarding school.
Ooh, that sounds familiar.
And I was listening on maybe even the same episode of The Big Picture. They just interviewed Alexander Payne about this, and they were talking to him about one thing that stood out in particular was he tried to shoot it as if he had what was available to people in 1970 and using some of those techniques. And one of the things referenced was 70s zooms, like slow dramatic zooms. And so watching Black Christmas, a movie genuinely made in the early 1970s. So it's like, oh yeah, there's a lot of zooms on people. Anytime someone gets information, the camera slowly zooms in on them. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Black Christmas looks great. I want to talk about it. Is that cool?
I will allow it.
Cool. I hadn't seen this movie before, heard a lot about it. The one image I knew from it is the girl with the bag on her head in a rocking chair. That's even on the poster. It's not really a spoiler to mention that, I don't think. The poster also says something that I can't quite wrap my head around.
The skin thing? I saw that yesterday, and I also didn't get it.
Yeah, so the poster, and we'll get into like the normal run of things. If this movie doesn't make your skin crawl, it's on too tight.
Which, like, does that mean the killer's gonna take your skin off? Because that doesn't happen. So.
That doesn't happen.
Are they talking about the bag?
That's what I figure it's supposed to be a reference to the bag, but the bag has nothing to do with skin and everything to do with not being able to breathe.
Yeah, but if you have the bag over it, then the skin can't move.
I guess.
Your skin can't crawl because the bag is super tight over your skin.
But it's only on her head. Surely your skin can crawl elsewhere.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's good.
Also not good. They didn't put her head in like a sous vide machine. So if anyone wants to take that for a horror movie in the future, feel free.
Speaking of horror movies taking things from other horror movies, we'll get into a lot of that.
Yep.
You guys hadn't seen this movie before either, right?
No.
Cool. So any of us are eligible for a 1-minute plot summary. Does anyone feel particularly strongly about doing one?
Strongly no, but I'm happy to do one.
Fair enough.
All right. Start the clock.
I did.
All right. A bunch of people who are probably late 20s, early 30s are pretending to be college kids in a movie, but like it's actually they're college kids.
And some late 30s.
Yep. So yeah, a bunch of old-looking college kids are all complaining about somebody who calls and some fucked up shit on the phone, just like moaning and shit, and yelling misogynistic stuff. And they're like, "Oh, don't do that." Then one girl gets insulted. She gets upset, goes upstairs. She gets a bag that chokes her out. And then the main, who you find out is the main character, is pregnant and she wants to have an abortion, but her boyfriend's being real 70s about it. And then the worst cops in the world and one decent cop show up and tap her phone. And then a bunch of people get murdered, to be honest, including people who aren't in the house and just around the town. And then finds out that the call's coming from inside the house, and then like all but like one person dies, and then the abortion boyfriend shows up and is like, "Hey, what are you gonna do? What's going on? Why are you hiding from me?" And then she beats him to death, and then they're like, "Oh, that was the killer right there. It was that guy." And then it turns out the real killer's still in the house. And that's Black Christmas, baby.
Black Christmas, baby.
It's Christmas.
Yeah, so I didn't figure out the lyrics, but I did want to start this episode with a tribute to Vaz, who couldn't be here tonight, by adapting a song, and it was going to be something about Black Christmas to the tune of Last Christmas.
Black Christmas, you got me a bag. You put it on my head, and then I was dead.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it would have been something like that. But I didn't. So there's a couple different places to enter in this movie. There's really for the house, for instance, in which they only lock one door and only one window, which seems a good choice.
There was like 50 windows on that sorority.
I really liked that they pointed that out, and then also didn't have a montage of them shutting any of the doors. And in fact, certainly didn't go in Barb's room because she had been stabbed to death by then, so they probably would have noticed.
Yeah. We can start by talking about this is sometimes considered the first slasher movie ever. We can talk about how it's the only good Christmas movie the director Bob Clark ever made.
We almost did the other movie, so
I'm really happy we didn't. We'll get back to that. We can talk about the urban legends it's based on, if you've heard it in other contexts. You mentioned in your plot summary the calls coming from inside the house.
Yep.
I think I vaguely knew that that's part of this movie when I started watching it, but I still think I associate it more with When a Stranger Calls just because of the title of the movie. That's not until 1979, the first one, at least. So this beats that. But that's an urban legend that's been, adapted into a bunch of different things. The calls actually coming from inside the house.
Yeah, and it was interesting that this one, with it being like one of the first ones, that like they literally just show from the killer's POV. They don't show the killer, but like they just show the killer entering the house, sometimes making the phone calls. Like you're never revealed on who the person is, for like a whodunit side of things. But yeah, the whole time the killer's in the house. It's not like one of those things where there's like a dramatic reveal.
Yeah.
I kind of am interested to see. I think the movie would have been a lot less compelling. And it would have been a lot different if the calls weren't coming from inside the house, but it's an interesting dynamic, like the scene where they find out that it's coming from inside the house, which is later, and I don't want to jump all the way there, but I think it's quite cleverly delivered because they've already set up one cop to be incompetent, and like they give him the line of like, it's coming from this address, and the other cop's like, nah, you idiot. that is the house. What's the other number? And it's like, it's both numbers, sir. And then like the slow zoom, like you were talking about earlier, to that guy's eyes, like, oh god damn it. But
man.
Well, yeah. Great scene. We'll get there.
It's great. We'll get there. Yeah. So the point of view of the killer thing. So this being the first slasher seemingly directly influences Halloween, which famously opens with a quote unquote one shot take, which hides some of the cuts in it, but it's the point of view take that opens Halloween from the view of Michael Myers, where you find out at the end he's a little kid, but he puts on the mask, you see him grab the knife, all that stuff. That I knew about going in, that Halloween is often seen as like pretty indebted to this movie, not just the holiday thing, but also turns out it's starting with that point of view shot. I didn't know that was going to happen. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And this is also shot in Panavision, so it has similarities visually too. And then the other big pull for things that this influenced is Scream, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like if you asked Wes Craven, like, hey, I'd love for you to watch Black Christmas and then come up, or even maybe When a Stranger Calls, and then come up with a quick 10-minute scene, like as an homage to that movie, I'm pretty sure you'd get the beginning of Scream 1 pretty consistently.
Yeah.
So.
And then also, if you ask Wes Craven to watch this movie, which he definitely has, he'd probably be like, that cop, oh, I'm going to make him the cop in my movie. Because John Saxon, 10 years after this movie comes out, plays the cop who's also Nancy's dad in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yep, I saw that.
That dude is born to play a cop. I mean, it's crazy to see him here. And then I was looking at him like, I've seen this guy play a cop in a horror movie before. And it took me a second just because he's, 10 years older.
Yep.
But this movie, him like in his, physical prime, this is a year after he co-stars with Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon. So
wow.
Weird career for that guy. 60s, he's in a lot of Westerns. He also becomes like a black belt in judo in that time. The calls I didn't know about. Like I said, I knew about like the inside the house stuff maybe vaguely as we were watching this. It was like, oh yeah, I think it's one of those movies. not that it hides that, like you see from the killer's point of view that he's in the house
Yeah.
Right.
very early, like within the first couple minutes, you know this. And then what was I going to say? Yeah, at the calls themselves, though, once he actually starts using words, one of the voices he's using sounds a lot like the voice that Ghostface uses in all the Scream movies.
Yeah, true. It was tough. It was tough for me. I had read doesthedogdie.com beforehand just because
Yeah.
for horror movies it's not a bad scan just to make sure that there's not anything here that's gonna really bother you, or if there is something that's gonna bother you that you're at least worried about, or you're aware of it, I should say. But I was like reading a lot of the because you can kind of scan, it's color coded, so you kind of like look for red ones, and like all the red ones were like, there's a lot of misogyny in here. there's a lot of abuse. There's a lot of people saying really messed up stuff, and I was like, oh, all right, I guess we'll deal with this. And then like that first phone call, I'm like, oh, we're gonna get a lot of this, aren't we? This is a lot.
Oh yeah, from Billy, sure, yeah. I just say I think it's sort of so. This is like if you're seeing the movie in 1974, the continuum of horror you're in. If you're a big horror fan that is seeing this small Canadian movie in 1974, you probably saw The Exorcist in 1973.
Yep.
So you've seen Linda Blair swearing, I guess. But aside from that character's just possessed by the devil.
I hadn't really thought about that. That's true. Like it's definitely got to be like that vibe. Yeah, I hadn't been thinking about that. Okay.
I was gonna say, you haven't necessarily seen a character not possessed by the devil played by like an attractive woman who is all about swearing and talking about, monkeys that have sex for 3 days in a row. I'm talking about Margot Kidder, who is great in this movie. So it's interesting you say that there's like a lot of misogyny, because definitely from Billy, he's got some weird stuff. A lot of the cops are very unhelpful, although it mostly just comes down to Nash, I guess.
Yep.
Who is always at the nexus of the cops being unhelpful.
Yep.
But I thought a lot of, and I guess we can talk about the cast now. I thought a lot of them got not necessarily a lot of characterization, but going into this movie, I thought it was going to be like, I'm trying to think of the other sorority like slasher movie. I can't think of the name of it, but whatever it is. Do you know what I'm talking about?
That sounds vaguely familiar. There's one where I believe like the twist is that it was one of the sorority girls that was the killer or something like that.
Yeah. It might be a House on Sorority Row.
I've heard of, that's one of them.
Oh, I don't want to spoil. Happy Death Day has
Happy Death Day. Well, it's not about a sorority, but she's in one.
She's in one, and the killer is also in the sorority.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
I think that might be what I was thinking of. I think I was thinking of Happy Death Day.
Yeah.
So this as going into like a 70s movie about that's considered the first slasher movie set in a sorority house, I thought it would be more pure exploitation. I thought that there would be like, completely superfluous scenes where you just see boobs, but you don't, which was like really surprising for me and apparently that's a thing that Bob Clark cared a lot about, was like not being super exploitative with the girls. When they were filming those calls, there was actually a much milder track that the people on set could hear. And then in post-production, they put in all that stuff because
that's actually very nice.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah. I think so. Part of it was that definitely was that was one layer of it, that he didn't want to scar all these like young 20-something-year-old women. But then also they just wanted a kind of mild reaction to the phone calls, at least at first. That first one where they're all kind of huddled around and hearing the phone call. And there's like a really good mix on everyone's face of kind of like, this is sort of scary, but we feel safe right now.
Yeah. It's kind of like almost like the strength in numbers, just like which this guy would stop calling more than like actual danger.
And Margot Kidder, who's a good 50 years older than everyone else. No, I mean, I think she's actually like 26 or 28 here.
Yeah,
everyone else is around 22, 23, I think. And that's like a pretty big age difference for people sometimes.
Yeah. And as we've talked about, since we've done a bunch of kind of older movies lately, like people just look older in past decades. Like, I don't know what phenomenon that causes that. If it's associating the clothes with parents, or just styles, or just some magical force just makes people look older back then. I don't know, but
It's weird
yeah.
though, because like starting this movie, I thought they were weirdly modern looking. Like there was lots of the fashion choices, lots of the hair choices. I'm like, this seems like it could have been recorded like not that long ago. Like there was there wasn't any big hair except for like one girl that had really curly hair. The clothes looked just like a little vintage, but I wouldn't say like I got like super like 70s vibes from. So that like compared to some other people in the movie that were like very 70s looking, it just seemed like those people were out of place.
So, and again, I mean, this is an IMDb trivia thing, so grain of salt, but apparently, and a lot of the main characters are considered like some of the most, it's Margot Kidder and Olivia Hussey, are considered like extremely fashionable, big 70s stars, really.
Mm-hmm.
60s and 70s stars. Olivia Hussey's Romeo and Juliet is 60 something, right? Apparently they had to provide their own wardrobe. So,
was that small budget?
Yeah. Perhaps the more stylish among the cast members just wore better clothes.
That's funny.
I think of one of the dudes the guy who's first like playing hockey and then shows up later in just like a nice shearling jacket.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess that's just his jacket. He just was like, I'm just gonna wear my nice jacket. That'll be my character's uniform. Anyway, so I mentioned Olivia Hussey, Margot Kidder, Andrea Martin turns into those sort of become the three main girls, let's say, because that's sort of, I mean, they're all adults, the actors, but in the opening credits, I knew Olivia Hussey, Margot Kidder were in this. I was surprised to see Keir Dullea's name from 2001: Space Odyssey, because I was like, that's in the 60s and he's a full adult then. Is he playing like someone's dad? And but no, I think he's 38 in this movie. And he is playing like a resident or a grad student or something. He's not an underclassman for sure.
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be like 23, 24, and he does not look it.
That adds, he's the main red herring in the movie that it's trying to maybe convince you that, oh, that guy might be the one who's doing this. And the fact that he's so much older and he has such a distinctive face that looks so weird with this puffy hair, because I mean, a close-up of his face from 2001 is one of the most famous images in cinema history. So it's just like I know that guy's face and it doesn't have that hair around it. So it's just like really off-putting anytime he is shown. So that definitely adds to, maybe that guy's murdering people. He could be. I wouldn't be like that surprised. But anyway, and then Andrea Martin came up in the credits, and I was like, Andrea Martin, isn't that the funny aunt from My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, yeah, it is. And then I like, as the movie's getting going and it's in the point of view, I'm like, I have no idea what she looked like in the 70s. I think the earliest thing I've ever seen her in is My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And I was like, oh, I wonder who she is. And it's showing like some of the girls, and they're like, there's the phone, and they're at a party, and there's some people in the background. It's like, maybe that's Andrea Martin in the 70s. And then they show Andrea Martin. It's like, oh no, she looks the same. That's that's her for sure.
Don't have to look up that one.
No, most Best Actress Tony nominations of all time. Good for her.
Wow.
Oh wow.
I would have guessed wrong on that one.
And I think those are the main people. Those four characters and John Saxon, who we already talked about, are kind of the main characters, I guess. And whoever that wonderful, wonderful guy who had to trace the call, just running by phone stacks, going, "Oh, wasn't enough time. You got to tell him to keep him on the line."
Keep him on the line. All he's doing is moaning and yelling like the C word. It's like, no, you gotta keep him going.
Yeah, you gotta keep it going. Let's get into the actual movie though. So,
I did.
How did you guys feel? So, just as an overall umbrella, how did you feel this held up as a nearly 50-year-old horror movie that came out pretty much before slashers? In North America, at least. I guess indebted to giallo movies from Italy, at least a little bit, but still.
My main takeaway was that I thought that the scenes were very creative. I wouldn't say like 100% of them landed with me from like the standpoint of like how we're shooting this or what like the angle. Like they do a lot of stuff from Billy's like point of view, the villain, where it's a lot of like POV stuff where he's doing some things, and like I feel like more than most people, I have a tendency to do that. I don't know how, like, how would that happen? Like, how are we realistically would this happen? It's like, shut up, it's a movie, move on. But like the scene where I don't want to jump super far ahead, but like the scene where Barb gets stabbed with the unicorn, and how they kind of like frame it from like the side, and they have like the blood dripping off of it after every swing, and they're doing zoom ins on the weapon and stuff. My thought was like I haven't seen a ton of horror movies and a ton of old slashers, but I thought it was going to be a lot more brutal. It's almost like they were trying. While I'm not saying it's not brutal, it almost seemed like a lot of times they were trying to be like, "What's the artsiest way we could kill this person, or display this dead body?"
That felt very giallo, very Italian. All the close-ups of eyes also very Italian.
I did like that scene where they zoom in on the one eye with the both. So I like I like to zoom in on the one eye in the bedroom scene.
And he's wearing like a red contact or something.
Yeah,
but it works. I don't know.
Bree was talking what had happened. The only thing that you found even remotely that got you to jump was when they zoomed in on the eye in between the crack of the door. Right.
Yeah, for some reason, like that eye fucking got me. Like I didn't jump, but it was the most unsettling part of that movie. It was very Hannibal Lecter.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, yeah. That's a good pull. And I think going into it, I think we talked about it, like I hadn't seen this movie either, so I was like, yeah, I don't know, great assault. I'm sure there's jumps or whatever, but it's sort of a proto slasher, so it's probably not super jump dependent.
Yeah.
It's probably got some stuff going on besides that, and whatever's there is probably pretty quaint. But I still thought like a lot of it was more sophisticated than I imagined. I'm not saying the plot's complex or it's like it's not like a Charlie Kaufman screenplay or anything.
Yeah.
But I thought like what was going on had more. There was more there in a lot of it than I expected. With the characters, there was more than I thought there would be. With the killer, there was more than I thought there would be. With a lot of the ways the scenes were shot, it's not as amateurish as I expected, I guess is what I was going to say.
It was funny in the beginning. I forgot how far they were going pretty far, like with like talking back and forth about different stuff. And I literally said out loud, like, man, I kind of expected the acting in this movie to be worse, like just based on the framing. And then like I still stayed up with that statement. I don't think the acting was bad at all. But like right after I said that, someone delivered like a completely flat line. And I'm like, well, except for that girl. But that was the girl that got killed.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, okay. Well, maybe she didn't have any experience.
And there's a couple dudes around the periphery early who are like, there's a reason I don't know who you are. But
yeah,
I mean, there's some big, names in this, and they are, I didn't expect that to be the level of competency, I guess is the short way to say it, was what surprised me maybe the most in like every sort of aspect of the movie. Yeah. So what's up with Billy, do you think?
I don't know. Bree, what do you think?
Honestly, unfortunately, it's probably mental illness displayed in a very horrible way. But I don't know. It's terrifyingly realistic in a way that, like, yes, it's probably mental illness and it's not a great display of it, but there are people that unfortunately are that out of it and they do shit like this. So like the realism of it like freaked me out. Because I think we were discussing it, like this movie is probably way more terrifying to women than it is to men. So there's a certain realism to it where, while yes, it's a horror movie, so lots of the characters are inherently not very smart. It's still, it can still happen, and it does happen. Like I was wondering, besides like When a Stranger Calls and Scream and stuff like that, there was like, this is just so familiar. And it turns out a few years after this movie, they were going to premiere it on TV under like a different name, and 2 weeks before the premiere is when the sorority murders happened at FSU, where Ted Bundy snuck in. So I was like, yep, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're, maybe whatever, like you said, what they're displaying with Billy isn't necessarily, a perfect one-to-one or an exactly sympathetic view of
Right.
someone who might have those issues. But this is the kind of house they'd target, right?
Right.
Like, not a lot of responsibility. No one's really in charge. No one's really locking the doors. Like, yeah, a lot of young women who aren't really prioritizing safety because it's college, it's a sorority, whatever.
Probably not going to have any sort of weapons in the house. Like,
yeah. And as you were saying that, I was thinking, so all of those movies that we're talking about all have some sort of preceding thing. If you look them up, like, yeah, they were based on this legend or this urban myth, but also in, a nearby area, this kind of thing actually did happen like 10 years before that or whatever. In the 50s in Montreal, apparently, there were similar types of murders that also inspired this. Despite all the American flags in the police station, this very obviously filmed in Canada.
Yeah. It was like Ontario or something like that.
Yeah.
They tried so hard to make it America. They're like, oh, we're all Americans. Well, even though everyone's like got kicking Canadian accents, besides the one girl who's like Argentinian English or whatever she is. But
that's Olivia Hussey. Yep. She's doing like the same voice she uses in Romeo and Juliet, which is like Royal Shakespeare Company English. It's not even like an English that exists out in the wild.
No, that's why I said to Bree, I was like, how'd they get this like mid-Atlantic accent? Like, did they pull this girl from the Atlantic Ocean? Like, where'd they find her?
Well, she was born in Argentina but grew up in Britain, and when I heard her talk, I was like, this is definitely a mix of an Argentinian and British accent. Like, it's just strange enough that it sounded like a perfect blend of both.
It is almost jarring. Like, it's very weird to hear her. Like at first, I just thought I hadn't heard her properly. I'm like, sorry, what's going on? It's like, she doing a bit? What's happening? And then, because it's not like they're like, oh, you're an English exchange student, you wouldn't understand. It's like, no, she just talks like that, which is like fine, but it's a little jarring in a movie that's all North American accents throughout.
Yeah, 100%. It's I like that they don't even explain who the killer is or what their whole deal is. I guess they don't have to be like, just so you know, here's where this person's from, because you're going to have questions, but there are questions for sure.
I really like that there's no backstory to Billy. Like, I just like that he's just a villain that is not seen, that he's just heard in the creepiest way, and then the ending of him still being in the house and you still don't see him, you just see the bodies that were never found, is great.
Yeah. I also love the ending that I'm curious what you think happens like once the credits come up, because I was looking at some other opinions out there and I was surprised that they were like, oh, this is a great setup for a sequel, because like Olivia Hussey's still alive.
Olivia Hussey is definitely not going to be alive.
Yeah. All right. That was my interpretation too.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's a setup for a sequel. I think that's a setup for, they didn't catch the villain, so as soon as the cops walk out, he is going to go kill her.
The phone rings, and like the scene before that, one of the cops is like, oh yeah, I guess every time they called, it was right after they killed someone, and then the camera pulls out of the house and you hear the phone ring. So
right. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It took me out a little bit out of the movie. because of the fact they didn't search the attic. It's like, if something like this was happening, the cops are going to search it like top to bottom. Like, they searched the entire basement, they searched all the rooms. It's very obvious there's an attic. Like,
Yeah,
it's not hidden.
I agree. There is like a thrown away line when there's a lot. I actually really like what they do with the sound at this point where, you know, the viewer, stays in the hallway looking into Olivia Hussey's room, but you hear John Saxon trying to like clear the reporters out from downstairs and all this other noise. And someone does say like, oh, let's get everyone out of here and then we'll come back and search the house. And
did he say that?
It's really thrown away. And then it's like also not realistic that they wouldn't do that first.
Yeah, because I remember the line saying
that in later when they were like, it doesn't make any sense that these cops didn't search the house. And it's like, maybe they just want to go take care of something first.
Right. I do remember them saying a line that that there were too many bodies, so they had to like go somewhere else, and that they need to round up the rest of the bodies. So to me, unless I missed that line, which I'm assuming I missed the line, we're saying they were gonna come back to search the house. When I heard that line, I was like, okay, so they searched the rest of the house, and then the ending started happening. It's like, oh, he's definitely still in the attic. So if he's still in the attic, that means they didn't search it. So yeah, I think I might have just missed the throwaway line then, which yikes.
Which I don't blame you. I missed it too, but then reading a recap.
Oh, gotcha.
It mentions like there was a throwaway line where this happens. So I kind of want to go back and double check that because great assault. Cause like, I definitely didn't hear that either. But I read a recap that said it's in there. So whatever.
Okay.
But I'm with you. It's weird. That was my first thought when the movie ended. Like, why didn't they look in the house? Were they just that convinced by, yeah, it was definitely this guy. This guy was giving off creepy vibes the half a second that two cops saw him once. Yeah, I knew it was that guy. It's like, okay. So, I mean, still look around. You're still missing a few bodies.
Yeah, no, like
that was the thing that killed me was like they were like, oh, like we got so many bodies to deal with. We gotta, so it's like, okay, so they at least found those bodies. Like, why didn't they find all of them?
No, but I think they give a count, and I'm like, that's not enough bodies.
Yeah, it does set up a pretty good. I mean, and maybe it's just in service of like, this is a better image that you go up into the attic, you see the bodies that are still there, you pull out through the window. That shot almost like was like, whoa, they do that all the time through Sandra Bullock's helmet and Gravity, but that was CGI. This is 1974. Because it's in focus, even Mrs. McHenry, Mrs. Mac in the background. Yeah. Even she's in focus, and then it pulls back and you're outside the house. And then you just see Claire with the bag over her head, quote unquote, looking out the window still, while there's just some dumbass cop on the front porch as the phone starts ringing. And well, Billy's in there. He just killed the other person. Yeah. Good job, cops. You didn't believe them for the first, until 2 days after Claire was murdered, basically. These dumbass cops ruining everything.
Yeah, no, the not searching of the attic, like, I think I got unreasonably annoyed by it because they were already there. They already cleared out so many of the rooms. Like, why would you not just check the attic while you're there?
and clearly, like, this is what's happening for the precinct today. Like, okay, maybe like the main dudes are going back to the station and going to talk to reporters. Like, leave a couple guys.
I know the 70s didn't have like great policing, but like, come on.
Yeah. And I don't know. So Billy got into the attic like from the outside. That was the opening, right?
Yeah, he scaled the whatever that thing is called. And then got in through a window.
So I guess maybe he could just leave that way too, but it's also during the day now, so I don't know. I don't know. It is one thing that's interesting. I was going to say if they made this today, they have, and we can talk about that. The fact that this goes on over the course of like a few days was kind of, I thought, an interesting choice too. Because I think, like, I don't know, I trust my intuition enough to have got a bad vibe and been like, I'm going to go stay at home for a bit. We obviously don't have class. We're just kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that they were like, oh, Claire's probably just wherever. It's like, I mean, if you know that she's not prone to do that, you know, maybe check where she is. Like, have a little more alertness. Like, I know there's no like cell phones or anything yet, but like,
the second that the other characters were leaving and Mrs. Mack tells Andrea Martin, like, I'm on my way out, so if I'm not here when you get back, don't worry about it. Just means I already left. Don't check. Like, oh no. Oh, that's bad news for that lady.
Yep.
Oh, she's not going to check for you, but you're not leaving. And she gets a fucking hook to the face.
Yeah. With not enough momentum to probably hook that face, but we'll take it.
Hooks her, and then you just see her like get fucking zoomed up into the ceiling.
It's very like reverse
good stuff.
Jurassic Park. Yeah.
It's just good stuff.
Is there there's definitely is it aliens somebody gets dragged into a ceiling? No spoilers for Bree.
There is a lot of ceiling business in Aliens.
That's fair. I think that's the best way to put it.
When they're making like the I don't think anyone gets pulled into a ceiling though. I think someone checks a ceiling and then gets pulled into the floor.
Oh, okay. That's fair. I have one in my brain, but I don't want to say it because it's the main character. And then the only other thing I can even remotely think about that evokes the same imagery is in Jurassic Park 2, where the guy gets pulled into the waterfall. But that was just an excuse to throw a lot of blood in the waterfall, though. That wasn't
Wait,
really
the Lost World?
Yeah.
I call it the Lost World.
That's fair.
The Lost World, Jurassic Park, or whatever.
When I was a kid, it was always Jurassic Park 2 to me. Because,
yeah, and it should remain so.
Yeah. My job with the Lost World was to tell my dad which movie I wanted because I was too stupid to know. I'm like, I want new Jurassic Park. And he's like, okay, I think I know which one you're talking about. I'm like, Jurassic Park 2. Like, that's not the name of it. But we're in an RX place in Swansea, Massachusetts, so who gives shit?
Yeah. That place was weird.
It was weird. There was a pharmacy that sold DVD or VHS stuff.
Yeah. So did Stop and Shop. They had like a whole video rental section.
Mm-hmm.
That's where and also they sold VHSs. That's where I bought the VHS for We're Back.
Oh, hell yeah. More dinosaur movies. When's Dinosaur Month? We got to knock all these in.
Well, let's get back to Black Christmas. So I think we all like that it doesn't go into backstory for Billy or show his face ever, right?
Yeah, I don't think I want to know Billy's backstory, to be fair. I feel like the more they delve into it, the worse it would be. So
don't watch the 2006 remake then.
Oh, hell yeah.
Which has a lot of his backstory. Which when I read that was like, oh, it's ripping off the Rob Zombie Halloween, which the first one of those has a lot of like Michael Myers backstory. He grew up in this abusive household and that's what made him into the way he was. And they do the same thing in the 2006 Black Christmas remake with Billy. Except the 2006 remake came out a year before the Rob Zombie Halloween movie. So Rob Zombie ripped that off. I don't know.
The only reason I want to watch the 2006 one is because I love the cast of sorority girls in that movie. So I just need to know.
So, it is a real who's who of 2000s of sorority girl.
It really is. I mean, what's the 2006 equivalent of Olivia Hussey and Margot Kidder and Andrea Martin? It's definitely, I mean, Lacey Chabert's in there.
Yeah. I don't know which one Lacey Chabert's doing, but she's in there somewhere.
She's only in one paragraph of the plot summary on Wikipedia, so she's not in it a lot, I guess. But Michelle Trachtenberg is in it a lot, I suppose. Not the main character. The main character, I don't know from anything else, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I looked her up and I couldn't place her.
I sent you guys the fun fact that she was also in the Little Love 2006 remake of When a Stranger Calls, and it must be weird to be typecast as girl who doesn't know the call's coming from inside the house.
And then also not be in a Scream movie, which is a tough break for her.
Apparently the 2019 one doesn't have a call that's coming from inside the house.
Oh. What? Isn't that the entire premise?
No, not of the 2019 remake. Should we get into it?
Interesting.
I really want to tell you guys.
All right, yeah, I'm fine with it.
You
Yeah, I'm
remember
still
how-
gonna watch it, but I don't care about being spoiled for it.
Remember how this movie is about a magic statue that turns a fraternity evil?
Yeah. It's right there in the very beginning.
It's right in there. Apparently, there's no mention of Billy or Agnes or anyone like that.
Oh, there's not even a Billy?
It's not in the plot summary.
Blumhouse,
they
what are you doing?
So they go to a college named Hawthorne College, and there's this weird fraternity that keeps trying to rape all these girls.
Jesus Christ.
It keeps happening. It's constant. It's in every paragraph of the plot summary. And they love a statue of this guy Hawthorne who founded the college. Turns out this statue is secreting a black ooze, and instead of turning them into mutant ninja turtles, it turns them into killer statues that sends them after girls who are getting too uppity.
What the fuck?
Did r/gaming come up with this plot?
Let me see what the phrasing is. Yeah, literally the phrasing in the plot summary on Wikipedia. The liquid allows the spirit of Hawthorne to possess the fraternity's pledges and send them out to women they deem unruly.
Jesus Christ.
Sorry, sending them out to murder women they deem unruly.
All right.
Yep, there's other twists too, but the big one is they got Carrie Elways for this.
How's Carrie Elways doing?
He's in it. 2/3 of the cast list does not have a Wikipedia page, so it's not one that Jason Blum really shelled out money for. Not that he ever does. They still made a profit. That's how Blumhouse rolls. So I don't know.
Well, I love Jason Blum movies. That's an interesting one to switch up like that.
So Control F Billy 0 out of 0 on the Wikipedia page for this movie.
That's insane.
There's
I
no
wonder
Billy,
what
but there is
the
a magic
decision for that
statue.
was.
So
I wonder what the decision for that was, because this is a straight up remake, but he didn't leave anything the same.
the trailer has women in like a sexy Santa costumes dancing to Jingle Bell Rock, which I'm like, I've seen that before.
Yep, Mean Girls reference.
You can't just do that.
That's a different movie.
Yeah, that's a better movie.
This was written and directed by a woman.
Like I texted you, it seems to be about Me Too, which is
Yeah.
they went for something, but so state of the film industry, right? They said, let's make a Black Christmas remake. People have heard those words before and they think they know that movie.
Yep.
And this is how you get your movie made. And then you make it your own, I guess. It was written and directed by the same woman. So
Yeah.
You know
This
what's,
is-
you know what's messed up apropos of nothing? I'm looking at the girl who directed the 2019's Wikipedia, and there's a picture of her, and it says, what's her last name? Takal, looks like. It says Takal and her current husband in 2011. Like,
taking shots. You don't have to say that.
what a shady comment.
Doesn't even seem like she's been married before.
Like, what if you introduced you were like, oh, this is my current husband.
People do that. And everyone's like, that's distasteful.
Yeah.
Because people do actually do that. Anyway, I'm going to narrow that down into a tighter digression. But again, if that's the message you want to work into your movie, does ascribing all the evil to a magic statue not sort of undercut your point about like rape culture on college campuses?
It's funny, I'm looking at the notes on the wiki page, and it says that this version wanted to emphasize the feminist themes and make them more obvious. That's not smarter. Making something more obvious and assuming that your audience is stupid does not make a better movie.
One other thing that seems dumb is that in the trailers for both of the remakes, you see like full body shots of the killers.
Mm.
Which again, like, have you guys not seen this movie? Seems like maybe you haven't. You've just heard of it. It's kind of the point.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Agnes is a character as well as Billy in the 2006 one.
Yeah, it seems like it's a more, not completely true to the first one, but at least similar.
At least there's a Billy,
Yeah.
you know.
And at
Hello,
least there's a
Bar.
call inside the house.
Andrea Martin's in the 2006 one also.
Yep.
She's
I saw
playing
that.
like the house mother.
Nice
Gosh.
touch
Gets
for her.
killed by an icicle.
Tough break.
Anyway, all that to say, and that's interesting that it does seem like they're working that stuff into a Me Too thing where, like, for a 1974 film, you have a woman saying straight up, fuck you, you don't get to make decisions about whether or not I'm having an abortion.
Mhm.
You have Margot Kidder, who's like not just hysterical, but she's kind of drunk and she's worried. And like, then that scene where she is just trying to like we've all had that person in the group that just tries to shock people by saying like overly sexualized things or whatever, or just like random shit that's just like, okay, just calm the fuck down.
She screams, "You can't rape a townie," and I was like, "What the fuck? What do you mean?"
And that's what makes Claire go upstairs, because Claire's like, "That's fucked up, lady."
Yeah, like what the fuck did he say that for?
I'd like to point out that on Does the Dog Die? It points that out by saying there's discuss, because it says it's rape mentioned, and it says yes. It says there's discussion of a rape that previously occurred, and a drunk bitchy character says you can't rape a townie.
That's a little misogynistic to put it that way, but
Oh yeah, we need a Does the Dog Die for that Does the Dog Die website. Some misogyny detected. What the fuck? Who wrote that? Billy wrote that.
God.
But I was going to say, but that scene, again, like that's sort of like someone would be like, you're drunk, go to bed. And then she would in other movies. But I was surprised that it turns into like, it's this deeper thing where she thinks she has this sort of guilt and is like, you all blame me for this. You all think this is my fault, which is a little bit more depth. It's not a ton of depth, but it's a little bit more depth than I expected them to give that character, the way that she had sort of been the whole time. And she does have that really funny scene when that later pays off in a great scene where she like says, yeah, the exchange for our number is fellatio.
Yep. And the guy doesn't know.
Cop. Yeah, because fuck the cops. These cops are stupid and they're not helping. So make them sound dumb to their coworkers.
There's a cop that laughs at that scene that literally is just, they give him a name in a later scene where that Nash guy screws up again, and he's just credited as laughing detective, even though they gave him a name, because he doesn't have any lines. He just sits there and laughs at how stupid that one guy is.
That is a good scene. He starts laughing well before you know specifically what happened.
Yep.
And one thing I saw pointed out that like, well, that's like a scene from Bob Clark's Porky's. What a weird career.
Yeah.
He maybe started slashers in North America, maybe high school sex comedies.
And then maybe ruined Christmas movies.
Yeah, and then maybe like treacly family Christmas movies, because like they used to be about like foibles and heaven and angels and shit. I know, like I said, we're about to do It's a Wonderful Life, but you know, maybe you credit him with all, you know, Hallmark shit too. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I explained it to,
he made a Christmas Story. I don't know. We just keep obliquely referencing.
Yeah, he made a Christmas Story, which if I'm sure most people have seen it, but if we end up doing it next year or something, like, it just screams like one of those movies where like no one had pointed out the obvious for like 30 years. And then like in the same way, and I don't mean this for it to be good, it's not. But in the same way that like Seinfeld just was like, what if we just say things that are happening and then everyone's gonna go nuts about it? The Christmas Story just did that about the 50s, but they did it in the 80s, and then everyone went nuts about it. And then a bunch of Gen Xers and like early millennials also really liked it because their parents liked it, and then they had to watch it for a whole generation. And then it's on TNT forever instead of better Christmas movies.
Yeah.
And then Zoomers and other millennials and like customers are just like, why do we like this movie? It's garbage.
Movie's garbage. Yeah, it's hold on.
Yep.
Because I was just going to sum up a thing that I read that I can't even credit because it's just a screenshot that I sent to Greg. Because Greg was fighting with me about how that's actually a good movie. It was fucking not.
Oh God, Greg. Another L for Greg.
And it was wait, I know I had to remember which. Sorry, this is these Discord recordings with everyone else. They're really quick, and it's just not possible here. I'll read it verbatim so you can Google it and properly credit. Let's look at what Reagan era Ralphie is actually nostalgic for. A long-suffering mom who can't have anything for herself. A dad who's angry all the time. A childhood in which his biggest accomplishments were beating up a bully and getting a gun. A world where boys make the rules and anyone who's not like them, girls, people of color, doesn't factor in. Worst of all, Ralphie looks back with fondness on a time when his family could openly laugh at Asian people. So yeah, and then I said, to be fair, these are all things Greg celebrates. So
I mean, that movie really is just 5 one-liners and a kid getting his tongue stuck to a pole, and other than that, it's nothing.
It's not even about Christmas.
No, it's really not.
It's just here's some shit that happened in winter.
Yep, here's a bunch of shitty things that happen to a lot of families. But like, yeah, no, people hadn't made a movie about the first time you swore in front of your parents. People hadn't made a movie about trying to stick your tongue to a pole in the middle of winter. And everyone went fucking nuts about it. The leg at the window is probably the only even like nuanced, like actually decent bit. Like, and even that's whatever.
Yeah, it just sucks. And that reading that great article that I won't credit.
Hey, we can get drunk and watch that next year.
I want to say it's Slate. I think it's from Slate. Hey, breaking in with the terrible microphone to set the record straight as I am editing this recording. This is from an article titled 5 Reasons Why A Christmas Story is Actually a Terrible Christmas Movie by Gwyn Watkins from December of 2018 on Yahoo Entertainment. So there you go, properly credited. My conscience is clear. Relatedly, a new H. Bomber Guy video is out about plagiarism. And I was watching that and thought it's probably good to credit this article. All right, back to the past. And them referring to him as Reagan era. And it's like, it's not about a kid. It's about a middle-aged Reaganite looking back on fondness where it's almost like he wants to make America great again. I mean, I feel like that's what the movie's about. So, yeah. Anyway, this movie's super Canadian, Black Christmas. I thought Bob Clark was Canadian. He's not Canadian. He moved to Canada to evade taxes. So it's really funny that he made nostalgia movies about the 50s. What the fuck?
Well, he didn't have to pay taxes, so he loved it.
Yeah. This also leads to a great word that we've never gotten to say in the podcast before, Canuxploitation. So this is of a wave of Canuxploitation movies, of which made Bob Clark like a big fucking deal in Canada. Way away from Hollywood, but making these cheap movies with a terrible sound mix. Or at least, I mean, the version on Peacock has a terrible sound mix. I'm sure that's degradation over literally 50 years now. I wonder if there is, I'm sure Shout Factory has like a super special edition that has a remix sound on it that probably sounds better. But I feel like anytime they were talking to Keir Dullea, there's like a huge echo for some reason. Anyway, what did you guys think about the movie?
So it's weird. I went into it being like, I'm not really in the mood to watch this movie, but like, we'll give it a shot. And I feel like plot wise, I wasn't really gripped, but I was kind of intrigued by a lot of the different scenes. And like I said before, kind of how creative a lot of the scenes went. So it was like this weird dichotomy of like, man, I don't really care about a lot of these characters, but like every scene I kind of want to see what happens. So like, it certainly wasn't, it was certainly entertaining. I'll give it that.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I wouldn't say it kept me guessing because I never thought it was, Peter?
Yep. I never thought it was Peter either.
I mean, his face looks like his name is Keir Dullea. So
yeah.
He looks like he has a non-name that just sounds. And he just becomes shaped somewhere beyond Saturn's rings. But yeah, I liked that it was pretty clear to me it wasn't him, but I don't feel like the movie thought I thought it was. I feel like the movie wanted me to have the tension of these fucking cops aren't getting it.
There was the scene where he was killing Margot Kidder's character in the bed, and they flashed like his face in the shadows, and for a second I thought it was Peter because it was very similar looking.
Yeah, the
But
hair
you can see that
especially.
you can see that the eyes don't match. So I was like, oh, okay, it's not him. But boy, did I think so for a bit. So it's like, wait, is there two killers? Like, did Scream also like take this from this movie? And like, we're supposed to find out maybe that we think it's supposed to be him. But then we find out it's like him and someone else, that he was just responsible for this one. And then Billy is like responsible for everyone else. But all the blame gets put on Peter. That's where I thought they were going with it. And then that didn't turn out to be true, but
That makes sense. Or like that could have made sense for sure. I do think it does an interesting thing where like it does introduce some characters who give off a kind of creepy vibe. Claire's dad, I guess you're supposed to maybe think he's a red herring, but like he's not
I
really.
never believed that.
No, he is kind of in the house a lot, but
Yeah.
It was weird that he hung out so much. Like,
It was weird he was in the last scene, and they had him have a weird like.
you're part of this too. Like,
yeah. Like when she was in there, I was like, why is he still here? Like they're literally just talking brashly about dead bodies everywhere. And then he
wouldn't
like
need to be here.
Yeah, and then he like faints kinda or whatever, and then
Yeah. They still are like, Claire's out there somewhere, we'll find her. So
yeah, but like cops don't take the parents like on ride-alongs to find their kids like that.
I got the impression he's like from out of town and he was just picking her up and he was going to leave. He didn't like have a place to stay. It seems like it's, early 70s suburban Canada. There might not be like a hotel in town or something.
Yeah, or even if there was, like he wouldn't be hanging out at it.
I just don't think the cops would let him hang like that. Is the only
he'd be standing outside or something.
Right. Like he wouldn't be right there.
Right. He wouldn't be like unaccompanied there. At least the first time that he's there and then leaves with a couple of the girls, Mrs. Mack is still there too. So it's like, at least there's an adult there while he's there that time.
Right.
Yeah. It is where he's part of that last scene, but it's sort of like the movie being like, here's all the people that we maybe threw out that it might have been who are like walking through this scene. And then you see everyone leave the house and then you see that Billy's still in the attic.
Yeah.
So anyway, so total kill counts, what, like 4 for Billy, I think? I guess the kid in the park.
Assumedly.
Yeah.
Do we know for sure that was it?
No, but Claire,
Cop Outside too.
Mrs. Mack and Andrea Martin's 4. Cop Outside's 5.
Cop Outside's 5.
They might be 6. That's a lot. Michael Myers is 3 in Halloween.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, cool slot.
Sorry, Michael Myers is 4 in Halloween.
And I'd also like to throw out like a quick, not that it has anything to do with the kill count, but like a quick positive for my 3 favorite background characters. The first one is the guy who gets it's like the taxi driver, who they didn't even really need to give that guy anything, but like the house mother that gets killed calls a taxi, and then the guy shows up like, anybody here? And doesn't say anything. Then he walks away, and then he like turns around and like he doesn't like flip off the house, but he like kind of gives the house like come on, yeah, like, which is a really weird thing to do, and it made me think that they didn't give that guy direction and he just went out for himself, and and they were just like, we'll keep it. He tried. He did a thing. We'll let him have it. He got his 10K and he moved on, or whatever the scale was at the time, and then the other 2 were those 2 guys that showed up with a gun and were just like, hey, you guys should be careful. There's a killer on the loose. It's like, yeah, you're the guy who just knocked on a door with a gun.
It's not even the door. They went to the window first. And Andrew Martin's like, what the fuck?
I did like that they were like, what was the line?
On the window with a gun.
I'd rather deal with the killer. Like,
yep.
Such a good
and then she
line.
dies.
Yeah, such an unnecessary scene, but it was so good. Like,
yeah, I like that they're like, yeah, okay, bye. They keep closing and opening the door. It's like,
yep.
played for laughs in a way that is also surprising.
And, like, what's her excuse is like, oh, I'd let you in, but my dog just died, which is like a perfect, like, it's like a perfect excuse for someone who doesn't know what to say, but just wants the person to leave.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, I don't want to bother you at a time like this, but just so you know, like,
your dog's not the only thing that's been dying around here.
Yeah. And before we get a million emails, it's 5 Michael Myers kills if you count the prologue in Halloween. I was just meant like from when he escapes from the sanatorium to the end of Halloween. There's 4 on that.
You really
night.
saved Noah on that one.
He's gonna get a million emails. Yeah, that there's a lot of vibes like that are like I said, there's a lot of surprises as just how the movie feels. I thought it was going to be way more exploitative. I thought it was going to be way. So I thought it was going to be more exploitative, but I also thought like the shit that's in there is pretty fucking brutal. All the Billy stuff. And I think it. So for that reason, I think it hold. I haven't seen it before, but I think as a 50-year-old horror movie that's sort of sui generis, like it holds up pretty well in my estimation. I think. I don't. Did you guys find it scary? I thought there were some like really unsettling images, which props because that's hard to do 50 years removed. But I mean, I didn't find it like super scary. If people are listening and they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I can handle this," it's not like I don't know.
We watched it right before bed, and Bree even brought it up before we watched it because she was like, "Oh, maybe we can watch it like tomorrow, like during the day or something, like on lunch or something." I was like, like I'd like to just, knock it out so we don't have to like, time management reasons. But like, yeah, I went to bed. Like literally, my thought was, if this was 1974 and I was leaving the theater during the credits with like the phone ringing in the background and stuff, and just how abruptly that movie ends. When I don't think it's in a bad way, but just like. I remember how, like, I don't want to go into it because Bree hasn't seen it yet, but I remember how Gone Girl ended. I remember leaving that theater just like catatonic almost, just like,
like I hope I don't get Gone Girl today.
But just like so much happens in Act 3 of that movie that it's just like, wow, okay. Like
it's a masterpiece.
I was like, I'm sure, like, I would have been leaving that theater just terrified, like, just like so visceral, especially the scene where Billy's like runs down the stairs screaming and like she barely gets the door closed and he's still screaming. Like it's very.
She gives up on the front door way too fast.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, yeah, just. Oh, like just terrifying. Like when that happened, I was like, that's probably the scariest thing in this whole movie. Like, and it's just, to me it ended and it was almost like thinking back to the 70s. It was like those people were probably walking out terrified. I'm sitting here like Michael in The Good Place, like, oh, the time knife, we've all seen, like, oh, the misogynistic murder of women, we've seen that in cinema, like where like I could sleep soundly. This is a thing I've been exposed to already.
I think that's a better way to put it. So I wouldn't say it's not scary. I would say it's scary in the way, Bree, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the way you were talking about before, that this is like it's not supernatural, right? Like this is a thing.
Yeah, this has literally happened in real life. Like one of the most famous cases is the Ted Bundy case. But I think so. I wouldn't consider it super scary. I can definitely see this being way more terrifying in the 70s before caller ID and before wiretapping was much quicker than it is now and stuff like that. And before people really realized that they had to like lock their doors and stuff like that, because I feel like people back then were very nonchalant about their safety. And then watching this movie being like, oh shit, that's something I have to worry about. And but yeah, nowadays, because a lot of it we know to lock our doors, like we have caller ID, we have all this stuff. Now it's more of just a thriller that you're watching, whereas instead of like being something scary that you think can happen, which still can happen because people still find men living in their basements after however many years. But it is way more of a thriller of like, yikes, like that could happen, but it's not how it was in the 70s.
I think that's fair. So yeah. That's the right way to put it. What I meant before when I said it's not scary is like, as a horror movie, is it going to fuck you up? It's like, no. You probably already know about the scary parts of this, just like from life. But there are a couple really good images, despite the plastic bag on the head thing and the rocking chair being on the poster for it, it still really works in the movies. They return to it in a few different ways throughout. And yeah, I really liked two shots, both right before and right after the Barb stuff. Or actually, the eye through the slit of the door is after Andrea Martin dies. It just is in the same room as Barb, I guess. But him over Barb, where you just see the one shaft of light over his eye,
Right.
and he's like shaking, and he has the unicorn over his head, and he's about to stab her. That's a great image. That's just good image making.
Yeah, using a unicorn figurine, something that could represent like innocence and stuff like that, and using that to kill a college girl is very powerful imagery. With the carolers like drowning out her screams, like very good scene.
That was good. That was
those carolers went for a second verse, and I'm like, oh Jesus Christ!
Yeah, Olivia Hussey was probably feeling the same way. It's like, oh,
it's cold out. She's got the door open.
Yeah. And I think, and he used the unicorn because he was trying to say that Barb was a robot, right?
Yeah.
That's a great Blade Runner joke, and it was for me. You know, I knew it wasn't going to get a big reaction.
That's sorry.
I don't know that reference.
I am woefully have never seen Blade Runner, which is probably one of my largest.
Done within a few episodes of Alien, so also about 2 years ago.
He got me for Avatar, so that was always the one that I told people. So now I can't say that one anymore.
Definitely more people die in Avatar than in Black Christmas.
Way more white savior too.
Yeah. I was trying to think if there's any people of color in this movie. Actually, now that I think about it, but it's 1970s Canada. Like, I don't know.
Olivia Hussey's from Argentina.
Argentinians are very white.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to bring up, because this is definitely something we talked about, that the actress that did Claire, she actually had a bag over her head, and she actually was holding her breath and keeping her eyes open for that long because she was a swimmer. So she said that it was actually really easy to do that, which was very impressive because I thought that was a mannequin for a lot of that.
Also, like a pretty, I mean, that's like a pretty extreme stunt also, because I feel like that can go wrong a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I assume there must have been like maybe like a hole in the bag, but just still like you can't be breathing and you gotta keep your eyes open.
No, she says they interviewed
really,
her
like tight on her face, and it's like
true.
Yeah, they interviewed her
mouth. Right.
She says it was an actual plastic bag over her head for extended periods of time, and that she just was really good at holding her breath.
I feel like if I had done that scene, I would at least need like scissors in my hand or something, just in case.
Yeah, I would just feel too claustrophobic, even if I could hold my breath.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to not be around your actual neck tightly, right? Even if it's tight, like on your nose and mouth.
Right.
Just for safety's sake, I hope.
Yep.
Anything else we want to say about the movie before we move into ratings and then December questions?
I don't think so.
I think I got most of my points across.
Yeah. I think I've also like given a decent amount of summing up blurbs already. So I won't repeat those, and instead I'll just say, let's go to ratings on a scale of 0.5 to 5 on any scale of your choosing, except stars. This one you actually have a lot of objects to choose from for your scale. What would you give the 1974 cult classic Black Christmas? And a follow-up question. Originally titled Silent Night, Evil Night, and then retitled Stranger in the House on TV. What's your favorite of the three titles?
Silent Night what?
Silent Night, Evil Night.
Evil.
It's a little too on the nose. I think I like Black Christmas. I think I like the simplicity of it.
From a marketing standpoint, you want Christmas in the title. Like, come on.
I think Dark Christmas. I think Black Christmas works.
Dark Christmas is good.
Was there even a Christmas tree in this movie? Did they reference Christmas?
There's a lot of Christmas lights and carolers.
Yeah, besides the carolers, but like...
I think it's like everyone's going home for Christmas.
Oh, I guess, yeah, that's
It's
right.
like why it's not that weird that the house is essentially empty.
Right.
People just keep assuming. I guess the 20 people that were here in scene 1 went home.
The themes like Christmas and like the way that Child's Play is a Christmas movie. Where like it sets up the very beginning of like, this is why there's so many of these toys and this is why Andy's mom gave him a toy, but like the rest of the movie doesn't really reference Christmas all that much besides like very subtle themes. But
so just from the trailer, so grain of salt or whatever, but the 2006 Black Christmas that has all like the Billy's background stuff, he eventually like murders his family on Christmas, and then 15 years later, he breaks out of a sanatorium and wants to go home. Does that sound like any other movie you ever heard?
E.T.
So it's funny because, like, maybe 1978 Halloween is taking a lot from 1974 Black Christmas, but 2006 Black Christmas is just doing Michael Myers
right
in Halloween. A lot of the voiceover phone calls that they put in the trailer, he's saying like "Jingle All the Way" and like so he's a Christmas themed murderer in that movie.
Gotcha.
Which Billy is not in the original.
Right.
He's just around and it's Christmas, but he's not Christmas.
He's not Christmas at all.
He's not Christmas even a bit.
Yeah.
He doesn't care that it's Christmas. He is not in the holiday spirit.
Nope.
Yeah, I think Black Christmas is the best title. Okay, so now we'll go to ratings.
I give this a 3.5 fuck Peters out of 5. I hate him so much. As soon as the abortion talk came up, I was like, fuck this character all the way.
Like, Peter, come on. He's just worried that he's like already 50. He's going to be shooting blanks. He's like, you can't let this one go.
This is my last chance.
This is my last chance.
I think he first said whatever he said in the movie, like, oh, like, like you can't abort. You haven't even asked me yet. And Bree was like out loud, was like, oh God. And I said, as a joke, I said, nah, let him cook. And not even as a joke. It's like, no,
absolutely not.
Let's run an ISO for Pete.
Yeah.
That guy sucks. He's bad at piano.
He doesn't even break a piano that well. Let's be real. They rented that piano for this production. It's like, we're gonna give you the rubber mic stand, and don't hit it too hard.
We're gonna shoot from an angle where you can't see any of the strings inside that thing, and we're gonna put like a rubber mat on top. Yeah, that guy sucked, and I do like that. Like, she doesn't go with it at all, which is cool.
That was actually a pretty pleasant surprise for me. Like, I liked that she was very like, I was terrified for her when he threatened her about it.
Yeah,
but no, she stood her ground the entire time, and I was like, this is the 70s. Fuck yeah.
I really do like the detail that they put in that the killer uses a line that Billy that Billy uses a line that Pete had just used in like the scene before that. That's really good because he's just like speaking in tongues basically, and then he pulls that out, and you're like, oh fuck.
Yeah, no, that was really good.
Great, Sam, you want to go or you want me to go?
You go, because I'm close to a bit, but I'm trying to figure out how I want to say it.
4 out of 5 harried call tracers. That guy was my favorite part of the movie. I really liked this movie, as I think I've said a lot of times. It exceeded my expectations in a lot of ways, and I just had a really good time watching it. It does have a bit of a double indemnity issue. I think I've referenced before, where it's a movie you watch that like, oh, this is what every parody of this genre I've seen is parodying. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of this stuff in the movies that you've seen done in other movies, sometimes making fun of that trope. But I still really, really vibed with it, I think. And it's like 96 minutes, like, it's on Peacock. You throw it on. It's getting the holiday spirit. I fucking loved that guy. It was just like, I've always so anytime someone's tracing a call, you're like, oh yeah, there's some computer somewhere that's just like, there's a wheel spinning and you got to wait, or there's a bar filling up to 100%, and they're just not getting there. And that's how it's usually shown in any movie made in the last 30 years, right? But you never think like, oh yeah, there's an actual guy who's running around, I guess, looking for like, there's a specific mechanical thing that's happened on a specific exchange, and that's how you trace the call. And it's like,
yeah, because he like
I've never thought
hears
about
it on
that.
his end. He's like trying to figure out where it is, and
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh, it's here. Here, I got it." Like,
Why he needs time is he's physically running around trying to locate a thing. And it's fucking awesome. Every time they do it, they use the shot a couple times where it's panning by rows and you're seeing him like between the rows of phone stuff.
Yep. Servers, maybe?
Because it was all landlines, so it was very manual back then. Now it's all phone towers and stuff, and you can literally just pull up software and just click on it, and just takes I don't remember how long it takes now, but it's not very long at all.
No, and and that guy is one of the few people who does his job, because he says he needs 10 minutes. The call he gets it on is only a couple minutes. He does a pretty good job. The ones he doesn't get it on are like 30 seconds. Like, this isn't Usain Bolt here. Like, give him a second. Was that enough vamping, Sam? You gotta.
Oh yeah, no, I'm good. Cool. I was between a 3.5 and a 4, so I guess I'm happy that the score, regardless, will land somewhere between that. So I'm gonna I'll bump it. I'll be nice. It's the Christmas spirit. So I'll give it a 4 out of 5. Ho 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 fucks.
Oh, that was a good scene. Yep.
That guy seemed like a main character for the first 25 minutes of the movie.
He really did. I think that was his last scene.
Yeah, I think it was too. He's like, oh, this is the funny guy. He's like, it's like a 70s Seth Rogen type. He's going to get all the laugh lines. And you're like, oh, no, that's not this movie anymore.
Yep.
He also went home for Christmas, I guess.
Yep, I guess so. I don't even know the actor for that guy because I don't know his character's name.
Yeah. And one of the things I was reading also on speculation was like, there's a lot of movies around this time that like that guy would have been the killer.
Yep.
Like, oh, this guy that like made a big that like stood out early in the movie, but you haven't seen in a while.
Yep.
And the cops are going to find him and he'll be in like a tattered Santa costume or some shit, right? But no, he's just not in the movie anymore.
Yep, that's it for him.
I think we've all said varying degrees of this, but just to have it sort of flatly, did you also, both of you, enjoy this more than you thought you would, or was it around the same as you expected?
I think I enjoyed it more than I thought it was. I was excited to see the movie that inspired Halloween. And it was really interesting seeing just how much spawned from this movie. Like, even if they don't credit this movie, you can clearly tell this movie inspired way more slashers after this. And it was cool seeing the blueprint. Like, it wasn't a phenomenal movie, but it definitely laid out a lot of future tropes.
Yeah. My thoughts are similar to what I said earlier. Just, I kind of went into it like assuming we'd get like a slasher that wasn't bad because it's a cult classic. So I was like, oh, probably a lot of bodies, probably a lot of bad acting. Here we go. And instead I got pretty decent acting and some really cool stuff. I'm not usually one for movie minutia, shall we say? Like from like when you and Voz were talking about the blocking in the birds. I was like, I know what blocking. I was like, I know what blocking is, but like I don't think I noticed blocking ever, but until like someone points it out. I'm like, yeah, it actually does make sense that they put all those people in this part of the scene. But yeah, no, there was just some stuff about that I was just like, oh man, didn't think they're going to bring out something like this, or I didn't know they were going to do this shot. Like it was kind of kept me on my toes almost from that perspective. It's like I kind of said, like every scene I kind of felt like, oh, like what's this scene going to bring me, which is more positive than I thought.
Yeah, the acting was way better than I thought it was going to be. And very weirdly more feminist of a movie I thought it was going to be. Like, you mentioning that the director very specifically didn't want the girls to like be exploited or anything like that. That with what's her face? me calling this a feminist movie, also me not remembering the women's names.
Jess was the main character.
Jess, yeah, standing up for her own bodily autonomy and stuff like that. Like, usually women are not treated well in horror movies. Like, so for the first slasher in the 70s to treat women pretty well is impressive.
That being said, we're pretty positive they're all brutally murdered by the time the credits are done rolling.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I agree. Yeah, no, it
Yeah, still
impressed me.
still a slasher, still women getting killed, but they were not completely brain dead stupid women.
No, there was so much more interiority than I thought there
Right.
would be.
Exactly, same. I thought it was going to be a little more mindless of a slasher.
Yeah. Weirdly, this movie is more expensive than Halloween was to make.
Huh.
Halloween made a lot more money.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't actually have a December question yet. I assume Christmas themed. I thought it would be funny to just ask the same question about like, what do you just got to have on your Christmas table? That I did last month about Thanksgiving tables, but I immediately thought like a better question is just like, what's your favorite Christmas movie? It's
true.
It's straightforward, but there it is.
Or you could say, what's your favorite like Christmas comfort movie?
Mm.
If that like kind of gives it a different spin.
Yeah, maybe.
So
let's go with that.
My favorite is Jim Carrey's The Grinch. Absolutely love that movie. I know you don't, but I fucking love Jim Carrey.
I think it's a me thing. I find the makeup in that movie to be stomach turning. It looks so gross to me. That's not
really
what the Who's look like in the cartoon.
No, it was a very weird decision.
It makes my skin crawl, you know. And
not too tight then.
I was going to say, and I'd be worried if it didn't, because that would mean it's too tight.
My favorite Christmas movie, I want to say Die Hard.
That's your comfort movie?
Yeah, even if it's a comfort movie, but like I'll try to go somewhere. I'll try.
You're on the first episode. You can claim Die Hard.
I can claim Die Hard. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I'll just stick with Die Hard. I mean,
Sure.
A lot of good Christmas related moments. I really like where he's got the like. I know it's not like a huge line, but like just it's Christmas. It's the time for miracles. Like there's a lot of fun innocence played with in that movie that is obviously very not innocent. And yeah, no, that's probably gonna be it for me. Because like, while I don't hate Christmas movies, I certainly don't seek them.
I'll go with, so you saying like comfort movies specifically, there's only one movie that I watch every year, and that's Muppet Christmas Carol.
Oh, I should have said Muppet Christmas Carol, but it's too late now.
So mine. No, you could also enjoy that movie. It's fine.
I actually, so I hadn't watched Muppet Christmas Carol for a while. I watched it probably last year around Christmas, and I meant to like watch it with Bree later, but I forgot, and maybe I'll try to get around to it this year. But I hadn't watched it in like I probably was like 10 the last time I had watched it or so. And like enough that I had remembered, like I knew most of the song. Like I remember the "We're Marley and Marley," ooh, you know, like all those hits. But
hits.
I had forgotten the opening song. Like there goes Mr. Humbug, there goes Mr. Grimm, and like that song came on and just like did the nostalgia insta transport, and I'm like, oh, I'm so back in on this movie.
We are so back.
Not we're back. We're so back.
We're so back.
It's we're back. We went too far. It's dinosaur times again.
Oh no.
Sorry, I kind of ranted over your answer.
That's fine. It's a good answer. We should also be so excited about it. If you do rewatch it this holiday season, you can revisit our episode 2 years ago featuring Greg, who hates Muppets. Thanks for being on, Bree and Sam.
Ooh.
Absolutely.
Stay tuned all month long for Christmas stuff. Next up is It's a Wonderful Life. We've got Gremlins coming down the pike, literally. Look out. And there's another one that we'll do too that we haven't decided on yet.
Ooh, big tease.
Big tease. All right, cool.
Hope it's good.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Find our stuff on Linktree, not Christmas tree, linktr.ee/late to the movies for all those good jokes, etc. And yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Merry
Craig.
Chrysler.
Kill it, Craig.
Craig.
Get in here, buddy. It's over.
He's trying his best.